Air conditioning estimating. We're going to use the CYTK software that's available for a 30-day free trial. And here we're working on a Acura 2007 TL. And we're going to pretend that this is not a collision work, but we're going to change and do an estimate on labor and cost of parts to submit an estimate to the customer to perform the job. So we need a condenser. We have a bent suction line, we have a bent liquid line, and well, not suction, vapor discharge from the compressor, suction line. The suction line is bent back, and the liquid line. So we need 3 pipes, or a hose and 2 pipes, would have hose connections on them, and 1 condenser. So we come down here, and let's go back. Let me go back, and we're gonna go down. So we already scanned the VIN. I've shown you that in other videos. We're gonna go down here to the wrench and the screwdriver. And I was just on the phone and I found out this is a faster way than word searching every item. Say we wanted specifications. Let's go to specs. And this should right away give our refrigerant capacity. And here's our clutch gap, compressor clutch back, right away, right on one page. This is what I wanted, and I was looking for this earlier, and I did not give this software a good enough representation in my earlier video, because I didn't know about this, because I don't have, unfortunately, enough time to spend enough time. So we're gonna do this live. This is nice. Here you go, you got your clutch gap, and you have it in either inches, or you have it in millimeters right away. You have your refrigerant type, grade they call it, 134. Our oil type, well, it says refrigerant oil, ND8. That is correct. This is a Denso compressor, so we have an ND8 in this. Refrigerant oil compressor, for the refrigerant oil condenser capacity, they say 25 milliliters on here, 0.83 fluid ounces. So if you were changing out the condenser in this year, make, model, that is what you would be doing. Oil evaporator capacity, you're changing out an evaporator, so you'd have 0.45 milliliters, 1.5 ounces. Now remember this is a gray area right here. This is where you can get into trouble. When you are changing an evaporator and the system came into your shop low on refrigerant, they ran out, it stopped working. What took place and happened in many scenarios is that as the refrigerant level will go down, oil goes out of the compressor and it doesn't come back to the compressor, and it often gets logged in the evaporator. So instead of having 45 milliliters of refrigerant oil in the evaporator on a normal system that was operating, that was full, you might have 85 milliliters of refrigerant oil or even more stuck in the evaporator that never made it back to the compressor. And this is those situations where a technician takes off a compressor and he goes to pour out oil and no oil comes out, because it's all up in the evaporator, because the system was being operated under a very low refrigerant charge. So you must measure how much oil comes out of the evaporator. Drill holes into it, let it stand upright on one side for an hour, whatever you have to do. Hose capacity, how much refrigerant oil to guesstimate for hoses. Whole oil system capacity, 120 to 135 milliliters of refrigerant oil, 4 to 4.5 ounces. And this is where I say that you might have much more oil up in the evaporator if it was operated under low refrigerant conditions. Refrigerant, right here, 425 grams of refrigerant. So let's get into estimating, and let's look for fluid capacities, brake, rotor, torque specs. Let's see what quick summary is. Quick summary. And yes, remember this is cloud base. And there's our engine oil, engine capacities, oils, fluids, engine filters, engine coolant, acid, organic acid, coolant based. Remember, don't mix coolant chemistries. how much, coolant, brake fluid, lug nut torque, 80 foot-pounds, and transmission fluid capacities, transmission fluid type, part number, air conditioning. So there's a bit of information here, but I am still looking for, I want to do parts and labors. Let's go into parts and labors. And let's not do a word says house the other way they want me to do it. Parts and labor. Get back to here. Does it give me a parts and labor? No, it doesn't. It doesn't give me parts. No, back to fluids again. Let's go back here. Parts and labor. Let's go condenser. I must be missing something. Condenser. Search, and maybe this brings me up to a window where I could get down to all the parts. Okay, let's jump to part numbers. It says there's 11 part numbers. So let's hit here. And condenser mount. So these little rubber mounts right here, I guess they sell these mounts maybe individually. Left upper condenser mount. Let's see what that is. They give a part number. It's under collision because it would get damaged, but there's no price. Okay, let's go back. Possibly the price is located somewhere else. Okay, let's go to condenser fan shroud. In this case, it's damaged. It needs to be replaced. NA condenser fan shroud. Okay, so that's not there. Fan motors. The fan motors are damaged. Let's replace the fan motors. So the fan motors. Maybe if I go there for that item. No. All right. So let's go get back into part numbers again. Condenser. NA. Ignition coil, condenser, ignition, oh, connection, I know. That's an old terminology. Condenser, nothing. All right. I must be missing something. A fan, condenser, assembly. So let's get the whole assembly. You could buy it as assembly with the shroud with the 2 fan motors in it. Nothing. All right, they're going to be adding this hopefully later. But apparently we can't do anything with the fan motors or even the condenser assembly or the condenser on this particular vehicle. But that's a very common car, 2007 Acura. So let's go to condenser fan blades. AC condenser fan blades. Fan blades R&R, and they have 2 line items for that. AC condenser fan motor. So let's see what we have here. There we go. So we have an AC condenser fan blade, R&R, 0.5 hours. And here's our price, $59 for the blade. And there is your Acura part number. So there we go, we got a condenser fan blade. Let's go for the motors here under this. There we go. The motors are 1 motor. And I think this is a 2 motor system. Let's see, is this a 1 or a 2? There's 2 motors on here. So there's 1 there, and there's 1 on the other side. So we have 2 motors, and these are aftermarket. TYC. This has already been replaced before, and that I noticed because the condenser was clean, and I can tell by the fin spacing on here that this is an aftermarket condenser that's on here. So I already knew that. And yes, as bad as this thing was smashed, it was not leaking, and I'm doing the recovery on it. So each individual condenser fan motor is $276. So if you needed 2 of them, there you go. You got like almost $600 there after tax. Labor, 0.6 hours. Let's go back. Now let's get into our hoses. AC hoses. AC hoses. Let's search. And parts and labor. Search.
An error occurred while processing your request. Please try again. Server error.
Okay, we got a problem there. Am I still connected? Yeah, I'm still connected. Let's try that again. Search. Maybe it was just a connection. Yep, just connection. So, let's go to air conditioning, refrigerant lines, R&R. That's what we want right there. We're going to be replacing refrigerant lines. 3 of them. There's the suction hose. There is the part number. There is the price. The suction hose is $52. Discharge hose. The discharge hose, this is the discharge hose coming from the compressor. The discharge hose is $55. Pipe assembly. Now I don't know what they mean by pipe assembly. Now I know usually a pipe assembly is where 2 pipes are connected to the, I didn't think this one had it. I thought it was individual. So I'm looking up here and I see right there, I see an individual. I don't see an assembly. And then I see another individual. So on this particular compressor, there is not a single manifold. Well, there is a manifold, but it's separate from the hoses. Like you know, like Ford and Chevys will have the single brick aluminum for suction and discharge, and then 2 pipes, suction and discharge coming out. That's an assembly. That's a manifold. So they're saying there's a assembly on here. Pipe assembly. I do not know of a pipe what they're calling a pipe assembly on this one. It's the wording that gets us into trouble. So this is a suction line, and sometimes like when you're going to Honda, they'll say pipe A, pipe B, pipe C, like that. But nowhere on here is there an assembly. Unless they're talking about, let's see, is that all one assembly? Well, actually, if you jump up to here, there's a single manifold, there's a single plate, and the pipes do not slip out of there. And so this suction line and this liquid line come apart right there, and looks like it goes all the way down to the condenser as one part. I don't see a nut junction point coming apart. So they could be calling that the assembly. So in this case, in this scenario, this liquid line goes all the way back with no break. There's no nut in it. And that would be considered assembly. So pipe assembly, $160. So we would be replacing these 3 items in this collision right here. And we would be, and these are the O-rings. It looks like this is a line O-ring, $46. Now usually when you see something like this, you'd have to look up that part number right there. You see that part number and you see $46. The dealers sell a whole bag, and I always recommend every shop to get this. Every time you need to do a job like this, do not buy the single O-ring. Buy the kit for the car. And the kit will be a bag with about a dozen or more O-rings in it. It'll even come with the compressor head plate, the big giant O-ring in there that looks like an octagon on this one. And you will get an assortment of everything you usually need. Sometimes they're wrong, but usually, you know, 1 or 2 O-rings might be wrong, but you'll get everything and you'll have leftovers. So every time you do an AC job, always order the factory assembly package if you don't already own like a 800 piece O-ring assortment kit. Always order these and then keep the leftovers because you will use them at some time in the future. Base labor time 1.5 hours for what? For each one of these. So they're saying this 1.5 hours, 1.5 hours, 1.5 hours. So you could adjust the time. If you're doing all 3 and you already have everything taken apart, it'll take you a little bit less time instead of multiplying 1.5 hours for 3 pipes, 1, 2, and 3. Now the most difficult one is probably going to be that assembly that comes from this liquid line that does not have a brake. And as you can see, this is all buried behind under the headlight. The bumper comes up through here, drops back down below the cruise control assembly, back down inside right there, goes through the back. This is in your way. What else is in your way? Yeah, if you took this out and you took this out, you might be able to get your hands out. You could get the plate back. There's O-rings back there. And let's go back and let's look at the condenser. Oh, they even have refrigerant recovery, so they should put 0.4 hours here and tell you. See right here? To perform the refrigerant recovery is 0.4 hours. Gives you the time. Now, if you have a new YF machine and it's a cold day and you can't start the vehicle, it might take 2.5 hours, especially if you're not in a heated shop. AC compressor R&R. Do we want to know in case we were doing a compressor for this vehicle? 1.4 hours, $902. There's the part number, the cross reference. If you want to use an aftermarket, there's your price. I'm still looking for the condenser. Condenser. Refrigerant recover, clutch. Let's see what a clutch is. Just a clutch. If we were going to R&R the clutch on this car. 1.4 hours. You have options on which clutch it is. Pulley, service clutch, and pulley assembly, $256. Clutch coil, the field coil. That's the field coil. That's the part number. That's if you only needed the field coil. And here's the labor hours. Condenser is the only thing that's missing off of here. And I think that was a no-show on the part. Condenser. And then a little noise in the background. Condenser. Search. AC condenser fan, AC condenser fan blade, AC condenser. So on this particular one, for some reason, they don't have a condenser. And that's it. This is a 30-day free trial. You guys can download this. Let me close it out so you can see what it looks like. It'll look like that. We open it up, it'll look like that. And there you go. All right, guys, I'll see you later. I hope this is helpful to somebody. You got a free trial, and you can practice on some of your own vehicles in your shop. And if you're a mobile guy and you were looking something geared towards AC and you still don't own something like Mitchell or ADP or any of the other big operating systems for parts and labor, give this a try. 30 days free. What can you lose? You might find out you like it. See you guys.